I can see clearly now. This is another one of those songs, though, Libby. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest along with Mike Lubitz. I can see clearly now. Yeah, da, 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 da. Isn't this like the Canadian national anthem, this song, where nobody knows the second line? Oh, Canada. I always thought the second line was, and I know I've gone over this with you many times, Libby. It's fucking cold outside. You have to have some baritone singing that song too. You can't have some guy with a high pitched voice. I mean, I don't know about you, Libby, but I can't imagine you've been asked many times.
No.
Whenever a Canadian team was in town to come in and do the Canadian anthem at a
Oh,
Panthers
no.
game. No, they haven't come to you to go, oh, Canada. That would it just wouldn't work in that song, would it? But what is the next line of I can see clearly now? Do we know it? Do we have any idea what it might be? I don't know. The rain's about to fall or something. What the hell? Or stop? Not sure what it is, but I can see clearly now what's happening in the NBA. Can you, Mike Lubitz? It seems to have taken shape. The upstarts, they look like they're going to fade away, knocking on the door like a lot of teams do. You know what they need? More postseason experience. Oklahoma City, a little weak last night against the Dallas Mavericks. Looks like the Mavericks might prevail in that one. Mavericks moving on, possibly to face the Denver Nuggets, who look like they were dead and buried by the Minnesota Timberwolves. All of a sudden, it's the Timberwolves who are on the ropes, and they're pleading for mercy from the referee, who happens to be looking the other way, while their tag team partner is getting buried in the other corner. Unbelievable. Now, if you aren't betting on these games, probably scratching your head on some of this NBA stuff, especially with the wild reversals, 180-degree reversals of form that we've seen in that Knicks Indiana Pacers series and other series for that matter. Minnesota, I guess, would count there too. BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports this season. From MLB, golf, got the PGA getting underway today. It's already, I think, might have started. The NBA, the NHL playoff, they have all the latest stats, all the news that you need. The scores are available to follow your favorite teams right up to the last second. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on all the action. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, where do you want to begin today? I can see clearly now. I think that would be a good spot. Boston ends up putting Cleveland out of their misery, right? They had nobody out there on the court yesterday. What was amazing about that game was, and if you were betting that game at Bet Online, my God, we've said this a million times. Why even bother with the Biden and Trump debates, which were announced? That should be very interesting. You have one guy who's a babbling fool and the other guy who's completely senile, or so it seems to be. If it isn't completely, it's certainly largely approaching that level. And those two guys are going to yap at each other. It's kind of crazy. But why even have these debates? I don't know that it's going to create any kind of clarity, but the line makers should be running the country, shouldn't they, Lubie? We've been saying this forever.
Was the spread really 15 and a hook?
15 and a hook. And we know what that hook is all about, people. We've talked about it many times here on the show, our various gambling shows. By the way, look for Barry the Bookie. It's actually supposed to be called Barry Your Bookie, but they got the title wrong when we put it up originally, and we're hoping that surfaces here on No Filter and on Caffeine TV and all the other platforms, because you would have buried your bookie if you had followed the advice of the guys that were on the show. They're fantastic. And it's popping up again next Monday night right here on nofilter.net. So look for that. Bury your bookie.
Yeah, that's what it'll be called.
But the bookies, how are they not elected to Congress, to the Senate? How are they not sitting in the White House? 15 and a half. You have an oddball prediction. You can have no Donovan Mitchell. You're going to have no Jaron Allen. He's been out for I guess he's missed the last 8 playoff games. There was another key component of the Cleveland Cavaliers lineup.
LeVert, yeah. Well, wasn't playing. He's been their best off the bench.
Unbelievable, right? So they got nothing, zero. And you're going to post a number up there that's going to make the two teams appear to be equal, as if you were going to make an equation between the Globetrotters and the Washington Generals. Generals getting 15 and a half. And that's kind of what it was last night. Generals getting 15 and a hook. And there it boils down to the last second, and you cover with the Cavaliers. Incredible.
I mean, they were incredible. That's what's crazy about that game is it was close into the late third, early fourth, and then the Celtics started to pull away. But even then, they were within 15. It was closer than the other game.
Yes.
By 30 something in Cleveland. That game was super weird. I didn't know what to do. It was okay, it was worth watching, but so I actually got frustrated when the Celtics started to pull away, and it's what are you frustrated by? This should not be a game.
The uprising of scrubs, though, in the NBA is something that you should pay attention to and definitely make a very careful note of because but whenever you have a team that seems like it's so completely devastated and just completely destroyed by injuries or people that are not going to be available to play, invariably the scrubs surprise you and find a way to go out there and cover a point spread. But we can see clearly now, Boston was destined to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. This will be their third straight appearance in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I believe it's like the fourth in the last 6 years. They've had this lineup together for a while. They haven't been able to break through, win a championship. I don't know that they're going to win it this year because I would imagine they would be underdogs against the Denver Nuggets. They had a better record than the Nuggets, so would that dictate that they would have the home court advantage throughout the playoffs all the way through? Is that the way it works in the NBA?
Yes.
Or do they find a way to rearrange things under Adam Silver's leadership?
The Celtics had the best freaking record. It's annoying. They would have home court. That's the only leg up to me they have over the Denver Nuggets is that they would have home court, even though they've actually struggled at home the last two playoffs.
All right, and can we see clear enough, though, Lubie, to already put the Nuggets in there?
Yes.
We're conceding, and the Knicks and the Pacers go at it tonight, the Knicks and the Pacers. Now what's going to happen in that series? That has been bizarre. Trying to get a feeling for what the hell is going on in that series. Look, we saw the Pacers get screwed in the first couple of games. I was all on officiating. They come back, they bounce back, they overcome, again, absurdly biased officiating on the side of the Knicks by the referees in that third game, and they managed to win it. They blow out the Knicks in the fourth game, and just when you're thinking it's okay to unload on the Pacers on the money line, as we recommended on this program just a couple of days ago, boom, there it is. Everybody has a game plan, according to Mike Tyson, until you get hit in the face for the first time, and that's what happened in that game. But watching that game, you would have to assume, and somehow there's a tie-in, Lubie, to the 94 Knicks. There are a lot of allusions to what happened in 1994 with the Knicks. That was the last time that the Knicks and Rangers were both like going back and forth and lighting up the Garden, both in there with somewhat of a chance. I don't think the Knicks have any shot of winning the NBA championship. They will not be hoisting the Larry O'Brien anywhere in Times Square. The Rangers, you would have to give them as much of a chance as anybody that's left in the 8-team field for the Stanley Cup chase, as much of a chance as anybody of ending up winning the Stanley Cup. In all likelihood, they'll have to get by the Florida Panthers, but we may have kiss of death the Panthers by declaring that, you know what, Lubie? Right here in the morning briefing, we're saying shit like this. You know what, Lubie? I think the Panthers have demonstrated that they're probably have a good enough team. They probably have a good enough team to win the Stanley Cup. Boom. The next game they lose, and who knows? Maybe they blow a 3-1 lead to the Boston Bruins. That game's coming up tomorrow night. Has a lot of people very nervous. But we can see clearly. I'm going to go ahead, make a bold prediction here. This is really taking some guts. Upstarts out. Minnesota finished against Denver. Oklahoma City not going to get by the Dallas Mavericks. I don't see them winning that game in Dallas, even though they did win one there of the two that were played there so far. Doncic was amazing again last night. Luka Doncic. How the hell does this guy do it? How do Jokic and Doncic dominate offensively when it looks like neither of them are capable of crawling out of bed as far as being athletic? This pass, it was only the number 3 play in the top 10 on SportsCenter. This 3-quarter court pass. It was Jerry Westian. I mean, it was unbelievable where Doncic throws a lob perfectly. I mean, absolutely a beautiful pass. I don't think Tom Brady in his prime could have made this pass, and hits Lively for a dunk. And it couldn't have been any more on the money. Guy has tremendous offensive basketball instincts, and they were all on display last night. So these two slow slugs look like they're going to be battling it out in the Western Conference Finals. At least that's the way it appears. And you're assuming, I don't know, is it ass is the first, the first 3 letters of assume, ASS, Libby? Yes. Are you going to look like an asshole if you assume that it's going to be Denver and Boston? What do you think? Or are we seeing this clearly, even though we don't know the second line of the song?
I know the second one. At this point, once Denver won those 2 games, you could fall into a trap, but you didn't. They then won the 3rd game decisively. Jokic is back to being Jokic. Murray is back to contributing, and you're getting help from Aaron Gordon. Porter Jr. is not doing too much, but it doesn't matter. Once you have Aaron Gordon involved and Murray involved, it makes Jokic's life so much easier, and you're seeing Jokic dominate again. The T-Wolves couldn't match with that. What the T-Wolves were doing was punching them in the face to the point where the Nuggets, look, people want to say they were lethargic. You can say whatever you want. I'll give the T-Wolves credit that they took them off their game. The problem is the Nuggets then asserted themselves. And once the Nuggets asserted themselves, the T-Wolves had no shot. And that's where we are now. The T-Wolves are an up-and-coming team. They're really good. They're where we thought they were, where they're not there yet. And I think the Thunder are the same thing. That last night was annoying to me. I still didn't see the Thunder.
Lowest point total of the year for the Oklahoma City Thunder, 92 points.
They're not like a lot of people. We were on the opposite side. I was like, I felt both the T-Wolves and the Thunder were in the same group where they're really close, but not there yet. And NBA people were saying the T-Wolves are in that place. The Thunder are for real. They're ready now. I was like, it's a lot of young. And we've seen in the history of the NBA, the young doesn't get rewarded. You have to take your lumps. And yeah, they were around the playoffs last year, but they weren't in this position last year. We've seen it with the Kings. We saw it with the Warriors before they won. We saw it with the young Thunder. We saw it with the Bulls having to get over that Pistons mountain.
You see it in a lot of sports, no doubt.
You see it in basketball, you see it throughout the years. Okay, so to me, you're seeing that now. These are two really good teams, and they're right there, but they're not there yet. The Mavs, to me, are not as good as the Thunder, but they have two veterans that know how to win games. Both Luka's carried a bunch. Look, Brunson turned out to be a good player, but at the time, no one knew what Brunson was. They went to a goddamn conference finals. And I think they won a game or two in the conference finals. Kyrie Irving has hit a goddamn game winner over one of the best teams in NBA history to win an NBA title. So both those guys know how to win big games, and the Thunder aren't there yet. And I think that's what you're seeing with both the T-Wolves and the Thunder. They're probably a year away.
94, Pat Riley learned a lesson. Huh? He let John Starks shoot 18 shots. He went 2 for 18, 0 for 11 from three-point range. And there's a little bit of an attachment to that because Riley claims to this day, at least he did to Mike Vaccaro, a good friend, a columnist for the New York Post, that not playing Rolando Blackman when Starks was obviously not only ice cold, but was a frozen tundra. You could see Jerry Kramer blocking Jethro Pugh into the stands there. This guy's still firing bricks from the corner. Come on, John. Very good player, very good guy, humble character who still has the distinction of being regarded as one of the better Knicks, but he'll always be known for what? The Jackie Smith play, huh? Bill Buckner. And the ball got by Buckner. 2 for 18. That's what people remember about that. And Riley to this day says that one of his big regrets, biggest mistake he made in his coaching life was not bringing Blackman in off the bench. And now Tom Thibodeau was forced to bring in this guy Burks, who
it's annoying.
Played 44 seconds of playoff basketball before he was thrust into the lineup due to injury to Anunoby 3 games back, and they only had like a 3-man rotation, so they had to fire up somebody. Thibodeau, who likes to bring nobody in off the bench, ends up putting this guy in, and all of a sudden he's a superstar. He's the second coming of Pete Maravich, which wasn't the case necessarily for Caitlin Clark. Can we drop the Maravich comparisons with Caitlin Clark, by the way? After that very humiliating 20-point, 10-turnover game that she had in a losing effort for the Indiana Fever. Not exactly the dominant force that they were anticipating she was going to be, at least one game into her career in the WNBA. Pucks last night, Colorado comes back and staves off elimination against the Dallas Stars. Colorado 5, Dallas 3. Scored a couple of goals early in the third period after a 2-2 tie and went on to win that game. They gave up a goal. It was 4-3. Colorado goes on, wins it 5-3, so they stay alive. Rangers and Carolina. We'll see if Carolina can do what most would have thought to be impossible, unthinkable, but this is the NHL. It's the Wild West. Down 3-0 in the series. Can they force a Game 7 at Madison Square Garden? That'll be taking place tonight. Oilers Canucks tied up at 2 apiece. Lubie been advocating the Canucks since the beginning of the season. Gotta love the NHL. I mean, they talk about coaching carousels. How about this? If I gave you these statistics, Lubie, would you retain this guy or fire him? You have a coach that went 212-97 with 40, I guess this would be overtime losses. So still getting points in those 40 games. 212-97. Had 100 points in each of the last 3 years, 100 points or more, including 115, a franchise record just a few short years ago in the 21-22 season. Would you assume that guy was going to get fired, the coach of that team? Toronto Maple Leafs. Can this guy, man? Just send him packing. 7 teams, is that right? 7 teams are looking for new head coaches in the NHL. Is that possible, Libby? That seems like a startlingly high number.
They turn over coach. What do you mean? We've heard it with 2 guys that left here that were good coaches, and every year or two they lose.
Peter DeBoer, one of them, the coach of the Stars. He was doing a decent job there, was he not?
Martin did a great job in Montreal, and
Jacques Martin.
Yeah, like we had
Gerard Gallant. We talked about him.
Hockey's weird. Hockey. Look, Maurice was a guy that the Panther brought in. His record sucked. He had he's
a losingest coach in NHL history.
he's top 5 in active wins, but he's the least coach ever. So it's like, but he keeps getting. Look, he's doing a good job. I mean,
he's been great.
It's not easy the life of a hockey coach, and I don't know what keeps a job because again, you're a big Boudreaux fan. He like helped the Caps win a title. And then, like the next year was gone.
I could have seen though where Bruce Boudreau would have rubbed some people the wrong way, much like Gerard Gallant. Who, wow, I mean, the guy had success here. They left him in a snowdrift in Saskatchewan, threw him off the team bus. He has success in Las Vegas. They send him to the Bunny Ranch. He can't even get a blowjob there, even with a gift card. And he knocks it out of the park 1 year in New York. Struggles a little bit compared to the first season, his second year, but still does well. And the guy can't even get a hot dog on a street corner, man. Even the vendors are going, well, fuck you, Gallant. Well, they're wearing a Ranger cap and a Ranger jersey that's stretched out over their big fat belly while they wear proudly the name of Rod Gilbert on the back. No, crazy league. Most overblown event in all of sports, Lubie, you would say is what? Most overblown event. We've had a lot of things that drew attention this year that normally wouldn't, including the WNBA draft, which nobody would have cared about. The draft lottery in the NBA, that's always a Thriller in Manila type of show, isn't it? Wow, you can't wait to see what happens next. Is that Elgin Baylor sitting there representing the Clippers? How does Detroit get screwed every year in the NBA lottery too?
Go from 1 to 5. Like I thought they put a cap on it. Like I thought
they have 800 ping pong balls in there. There are only 802 in the bin, and they managed to lose that. But it would have to be the NFL schedule release, wouldn't it, Lubie? I mean, what level of excitement? But were you inclined at all to tune into ESPN last night because they were going to unveil the overall schedule in the National Football League? Or are you not perfectly content to one day be grocery shopping, realize you're getting ripped off at the local supermarket here because the prices have been inflated 100% compared to the supposed 3% that's being reported nationally by whatever service tracks such things? And then, you're thinking, hey, you know what? I'm going to grab 3 of these Dolphin schedules that are sitting there. We're here in Miami. Other than that, look at that. On November 14th, they played Detroit. That's great. Maybe I'll go to that game. How much excitement could you possibly have? Is that not the most overblown sporting event? Can you even call it a sporting event? The unveiling, and they're making a big deal out of this thing, right? All of the networks are, I guess, proudly displaying the fact that they're going to have certain games. And all we keep finding out is Goodell has fucked us again. Right? Because all of the games that you really want to watch when they unveil the schedule are on things and services and platforms that you would have to pay hundreds of dollars to acquire if you didn't already have them and weren't already investing hundreds of dollars in what essentially is a pay-per-view deal. Pretty crazy, right? 2 Christmas Day games going to be on Netflix.
Yeah, what's going on with that? That was the NBA's thing. I love that they've taken that over no matter what the day of the week it is.
Yeah. Now they just want the NBA to go away, the NFL. They really do.
Why?
They're going to offer LeBron James a chance to buy a piece of a team in the NFL. He'll never mention the NBA in the 50 years subsequent to his NBA career. You'd never know he was a basketball player. All right, PGA, I think underway already as we speak here. PGA tournament. The big news yesterday out of the tournament was that Rory McIlroy, among the favorites, second choice at 6-1 to win the thing behind Scotty Scheffler's really, really minuscule 3-1 odds to win the tournament against a field. I mean, a field that includes guys that come out of nowhere, right? You have all those PGA pros that end up qualifying. Had the great Tin Cup story last year with this guy, Michael Block. Remember that guy, Michael Block? He was in contention. He had an ace while he was paired. I think it was in the 3rd round with Rory McIlroy. Last year, this is a club pro from Mission Viejo, which, let's face it, if you're teaching golf at the Mission Viejo Country Club, you're probably getting some babes. There have to be some really bored, gorgeous, rich housewives that are taking golf lessons at the Mission Viejo Country Club. So this guy Block was probably sitting in a pile of shit anyway. But nonetheless, by finishing 15th in the PGA tournament last year, making a cut, and then he was paired up with McIlroy as a spectacular shot. He became a celebrity of Roy McAvoy type proportions. And it reminded me of that movie, Tin Cup, which was a good movie. I mean, pretty decent. Cheech Marin in there. And, of course, the lovely Renee Russo, who had the pleasure of waiting on a couple of times at a restaurant I worked in California. And I guess I can admit this now, Lubie. There's a wife upstairs. I think she's still sleeping. But back in the day, before you had been inundated with pornography on the internet, it wasn't uncommon for a young man to take a look at the woman who was on the cover of Cosmopolitan magazine and indulge in some form of self-satisfaction. Is that a delicate way of putting it?
I guess.
In other words, you were whacking off to whoever was on the cover of Cosmopolitan, which was often the lovely Renee Russo, who I later came. I didn't really know her well or anything, but she would come in. She was a frequent customer in this joint that I was working in on the Sunset Strip in Los Angeles, and delightful young lady, unbelievable. But when have you ever seen a sports psychologist on ESPN or any network that was being consulted about the state of mind of some athlete that looked like fucking Renee Russo? You should look like Brian Windhorst. What are you talking about here, Louis? That's insane to think that this is the kind of person that would be administering and practicing sports psychology, able to work their way through whatever was bothering Costner at the time and help him get away from the yips, which exhibited full force. Well, once he decided, hey, I'm hitting that ball over the creek. But that was kind of an oddity about that movie that didn't really fit. Because a sports psychologist never looks like that. They're more likely to look like the guy that says, are these yours? That comes out of the back of some sweatshop arrangement when you go to the dry cleaners. And to look like Renee Russo did in that movie. All right, a couple of other things real quick. Italian Open, Coco Gauff, our girl Coco Gauff, going against Iga Swiatek. I believe is how you pronounce the name now. It's been pronounced a zillion different ways. And Arina Sabalenka, the Belarusian babe. Going against Danielle Collins, who has resurrected her career. She's decided she should decide to retire every year, huh? She's having her best year ever by far in the year that she's doing her swan song. I wish the same could be said for the great Rafael Nadal. And this worthy of mention, because anytime you're a New York Yankee and you wear the pinstripes and you accomplish something where the other three names that are on the list who have accomplished that same thing are Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, and Joe DiMaggio.
Jesus.
Aaron Judge, 4 extra base hits in the ball game yesterday. Second time this season, he's had 4 extra base hits. He was not having a particularly good year, and the guy's been mired in kind of a wild slump since the beginning of the season here. He was hitting about 230, but seems to be snapping out of it. 4 extra base hits for the second time this year. Only other Yankees to ever do it: Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, and the great Joe D. All right, we have to run. Preakness is coming up. Muth, the favorite, is out. Muth was the selection of our good friend Frank Miramati, who will be calling the Belmont Stakes from Saratoga when it's run there. And Muth was the morning line favorite at 8-5 in the Preakness. Had beaten Mystic Dan when they ran together. I believe that was in the Arkansas Derby. And so the favorite out now, a field of 8 going to the post in the Preakness, kind of diminishes the betting opportunities, unless, of course, you believe that Mystic Dan is going to bounce out of the race. But supposedly the weather forecast is for inclement weather, which means that the track, in all likelihood, would come up sloppy. Now, I'm no weatherman, and we've said this many times, Louie. If you could book the weatherman's action, I mean, the world would be, without a single need. These guys are routinely wrong. So if it comes up sloppy, that favors Mystic Dan a little bit. So we'll see what happens. We'll follow those developments as we come back with you again tomorrow on another edition of the Morning Briefing. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm Jeff DeForest. How does it go? I can see clearly now. The rain's about to... What is it? Is it the rain is about to fall?
The rain is gone. The rain is gone.
Oh, the rain is... That's it? That's the next line? The rain is gone. How'd they get away with that? That doesn't even, follow the pattern there.
How do you not know that that's the words of the song?
All right, so what's the next line in Oh, Canada?
Our home and native land.
Oh, you know that?
Yes,
because you've looked it up a few times because we've brought this up like 1,000 times.
That's my favorite. That anthem is, I really enjoy that anthem. I like that anthem.
You do?
It's funny when they do it for hockey games because they have the baritone fucking guys singing. When I've heard it at the Olympics and shit, I used to growing up when Toronto would be in the World Series every fucking year, they would sing that anthem. And I actually enjoyed it.
That was always an annoying thing about Don King fights, where they would play 5 different anthems before the guys actually threw the first punch. Okay, now to give us the national anthem of Mexico. You'd hear Jimmy Lennon Jr. Saying that, and you're thinking, really? Another one? You got to be kidding me, Don. What the fuck, man? Did this band play at your bar mitzvah? Well, what are we talking about? All right, we got to get out of here. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest, and always enjoy being with you here on the Morning Briefing.